Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us to learn a little bit more about the new Ohio Legal Help statewide website. My name is Rachel Harris. I am the project coordinator and content manager for Ohio Legal Help. I am on staff at the Ohio Legal Assistance Foundation, and I have been working on this project for about 2.5 years. So I can answer most questions about how the website was developed, why things are the way that they are, why we made certain choices. So if at any point during the broadcast you have any questions, please feel free to go ahead and type those in the question box. And also, just so you know, we are recording this webinar today, and after we conclude, I will be posting this to the Ohio Legal Help YouTube channel. So if you have any colleagues who maybe weren't able to attend today, I will send out that link to everyone on this session, and you should feel free to share that with any of your colleagues who might be interested. So to start with a little bit of background on this redesigned site, back in 2015, the Supreme Court of Ohio convened an Access to Justice task force, and they released a report with a series of recommendations to increase access to justice in Ohio. One of these recommendations was the development of a statewide legal information website and portal that emphasized easy to understand and accurate legal information. Based on that recommendation, in the spring of 2017, the Ohio Legal Assistance Foundation convened a group of stakeholders that we call our steering committee, with representatives from a kind of diverse group of stakeholders in the legal services community. So that included folks from the Supreme Court, from the OSBA, legal aid, and then we also had judges, clerks, law librarian, a public librarian, and a domestic violence advocate. You'll notice that we really wanted to focus on the full spectrum of folks who interact with pro se litigants in their experience with the court system. We felt that especially the inclusion of the law librarians and the public librarians was really important to understand the kind of information that pro se litigants are looking for, and the types of issues that they face and the barriers that they face to accessing the court system. After the steering committee was formed, we kicked off with a series of research. So we did a round of surveys of both stakeholders and users, and then we also did a series of kind of visioning documents and research that included a literature review as well as some in-person user tests of other websites from other states that have a similar focus. And the whole idea here was to make sure that what we built was actually going to be helpful to pro se litigants in Ohio. So the first element of this was surveying the stakeholders, and we got, I think, answers back that you will not be surprised by. Folks said that family, housing, and consumer law were by far the largest areas of civil legal need. Obviously, crime and traffic also has a large, high volume, especially when we're looking at municipal courts. But in terms of civil needs, they reported a lot of family, housing, and consumer issues facing pro se litigants. Another bit of feedback that we got was that folks are generally confused about how the court system works. So from that stakeholder perspective, that was kind of a clear thread that was identified, that a lot of folks don't necessarily understand the nuances of a lot of terminology, and that can create some obstacles both for the litigant and for the professionals that are attempting to help them successfully complete their court processes. Following that, we did another survey. We surveyed over 800 Ohioans. We oversampled low-income folks, so folks that are more likely to find themselves representing themselves in court. And we asked them questions not only about specific legal issues, which I think, again, not surprising, they reported the same high need areas, so family, housing, and consumer matters were all reported by our users as high need areas. But they also, again, echoed what the stakeholders were saying, that a lot of their barriers to access in the court system is just a lack of understanding about how the court system works. I'm sure you all know that Ohio is a diverse, mosaic of different courts, and for a layperson with no previous background, even figuring out like which courthouse to go to. Let's say that there's a common pleas, the common pleas division is in one building, but then the domestic relations building is 2 blocks away. Even something as little as that, as kind of minor of a detail as that, can be a huge barrier and can be really discouraging for a self-represented litigant. And then kind of the next part of this was that we surveyed how folks are accessing the internet, especially when they're doing this kind of, life and money type of research. So this is legal issues are things that are going to impact their lives, obviously, to a pretty significant degree. And we wanted to know how most folks address problems of that nature, when they're starting out doing research. And we got a lot of responses that I think are in keeping with a lot of other research that's out there, that a lot of folks are accessing the internet primarily through their phones. So that's true even for the lower income population. That's actually probably more true for the lower income population, because they don't necessarily have broadband or desktop computers at home. This is doubly true. We got some interesting feedback from our rural stakeholder partners reporting that this is especially true for rural users. So in areas where there is not the same sort of broadband infrastructure, it can be kind of a double challenge of not even having, broadband easily available, in the whole town, much less in a low-income person's home. So taking from that research, we took this back to the steering committee, and we formulated a design and plan of action. And one of the first things that we decided was that we were going to build this website as a mobile-first website. It's not an app. You don't have to download anything. We felt that having folks download an app is going to be just another barrier to access. So if you see here, this is the desktop view. This is how, when I'm at work, that's, really when I'm on a desktop. I'm sure that that's the case for most of us. But it looks great. It works. It's nice. It's a website. But we designed it actually focusing on this view, which is the mobile view. So for the rest of the demonstration today, I'm going to be showing you this mobile view. Again, we wanted to make sure that it was easy to use on a phone. So all of these buttons are big and finger friendly. It can be hard, especially for folks with a smaller smartphone to make sure that they're hitting the right things. So we wanted to give people a big target. You see here we have the legal areas sorted in order of the degree of need that we got feedback on from our stakeholders and our users. So we have family, housing, money and debt. So that's really debt and bankruptcy. Health and public benefits. This is a lot of information about how to explore whether or not you're you're potentially eligible to receive certain benefits, and what to do if you are, in your opinion, denied those benefits improperly. We have crime and traffic. This is a civil site, so what this largely does is it directs folks either to the relevant courthouses in their area, and then for criminal issues, it directs them to the public defender's office that is relevant to their area. And then finally, we have going to court. This was our attempt to address the kind of confusion element that we were seeing come out in our earlier research. So a lot of content we found, would give folks a form, but maybe it wouldn't necessarily explain how the process works of filing the form or actually going to the hearing. So this kind of walks folks through what they need to do before they go to court, everything from make sure you take the whole day off work, make sure that you dress appropriately, to this is what evidence is and this is how you introduce it, this is what a witness is, these are the cases, this is the time and place that you should expect to speak in court, explain to folks that they should not interrupt a judge, things like that. So going up, I just realized how rude of me. I did not let you guys know that if you have any questions, please type them in the questions box and I will answer them as we go. We have a pretty small group, so I'm not too worried about interruptions. So again, any questions, go ahead and ask away. Right. So before we get started, I want to also frame this for you all, that in our research, not only do we find that most folks are doing their information gathering on their phones, but people are also primarily using Google as a way to do this sort of research. So it's not necessarily that people are searching for general help sites and then are navigating through the site themselves. Most folks are just going to type in, let's say, landlord problem, Ohio, something like that. So that would direct them to a place deeper in the site. They wouldn't necessarily be coming in on the homepage. However, it's a lot easier for me to kind of go through and explain the user journey kind of from this central starting point. However, knowing that most people are going to Google, and we did make search engine optimization a really prominent part of our rollout plan. We had a great volunteer who is a SEO expert for Thomson Reuters, who is working with us and has given us a lot of really interesting feedback. And I feel like that's going to be really integral going forward to make sure that we are coming up, especially ahead of some sites that maybe don't have the best intentions at heart for our target audience. We want to make sure that people are getting the accurate information that they need, not necessarily, getting served up, ads for, irrelevant issues, if that makes sense. That was another thing that we got feedback on from the librarians, that they really wanted to make sure that our search results were coming up prominently in Google, because they found that their patrons really just, some folks will just type something in, and first thing, folks don't necessarily have the ability to discern between an ad and then what Google is serving up as the best actual option. So here also, I didn't mention this, so we have a disaster recovery tile at the moment. This has, if you click on this, it takes you directly to some information on emergency legal services related to the tornadoes in the Dayton area. When we have a state of emergency declared, there are special legal services that are available through legal aid. So that's another great thing, is that this site was built with the flexibility to adapt. That happened, I think, the week before we launched. So we had the ability to kind of quickly put that together. And and we place it prominently within, I would say, hopefully about a month or two, hoping that we have no further severe weather of that nature. That will probably drop down to be a less prominent element. Great. So I'm going to take you on our user journey. I am going to kind of put on the persona of a tenant with a conditions issue in my home. So I get to the home page and I'm going to say I have an issue with housing. Here we have, what kind of help would you like for your housing issue? In our research, we found that folks really want to first get into what their substantive problem is. There were a couple of state websites that we tested that did demographic information first, and out of, I think we tested with 22 folks, a surprising number of them said, well, why are they asking about me? They don't even know what I need help with. Like, they don't even know if they need to know that. So we started out asking people what they're actually looking for. So I'm going to say I want a lawyer and legal information. Then we ask folks what's going on. Again, you see these big clickable buttons. I'm going to say my landlord will make repairs. Next, we get to where do you live in Ohio? So this is the beginning of the more user-focused questions. All of these questions are totally optional. Folks can still get the legal information and any forms that aren't tied to their specific geography by just hitting skip. But we also wanted to explain to folks why we're asking these questions, that it could potentially provide better answers and better options for them if they are willing to share a little bit more information. So I'm going to say I live in Franklin County and I live in Columbus. Great. So again, we're really all about informing our users about their potential rights to privacy. We want to make sure that we're not coercing anyone into giving us information. So we ask again, are you sure you want to answer some more questions about yourself? I'm going to say yes. And now we get to our demographics. So this is used to determine what sorts of social services as well as kind of nonprofit legal services are available for folks. So we need to know how many people live in their household, and we need to know that household's monthly income to determine their percentage of federal poverty. If I say that I live with one other person, here I'm going to get a series of ranges. These ranges correspond to percentages of federal poverty. So less than $1,800 a month for 2 people in a household corresponds to 125% of poverty, which is our kind of lowest service level, that income level for services that we have indexed on our site. And then this goes the whole way up to 500% of poverty. So there are services kind of, more in the 200% range, 300% range, and we have the ability to match folks with those services based on their income. Also, when you change the number of people you live with, the income information changes. So we don't make anyone do any math. We don't expect people to know what percentage of poverty they are. We try to make it pretty straightforward. And now we have some kind of basic demographic questions. All of these questions correspond to specific services that are available for folks in these special populations. So I'm going to go through, I'm going to say no. If I said I was at risk of becoming homeless, I would get information for 211. We want to make sure that people have access to the shelter system if they need it. We want folks to be stabilized before they, tackle any legal issues that they might be having. And then we also ask about, experiencing violence and abuse in the event that the user could benefit from some domestic violence resources. All right, that's my results. All right, so here we get to kind of our content hub, if you will. So the way the site is designed is that we try to give folks kind of a landing spot that covers a lot of elements of a particular issue, and then it links off to the more specific information based on what the user needs. So Here we get a little abstract, just kind of brief overview explaining, hey, if your landlord's not making repairs, there's some things you can do. They have to make certain repairs, and you can read more to find more information. You see here we have the options to text, email, link, and print this page. Especially for folks on phones, we were kind of thinking that it may be helpful to save it for later. Also emailing it to yourself. Let's say I am on a phone and I realize, oh no, I want to move to a desktop. This is too much for me on my phone right now. We wanted to make it easy for folks to share that information with each other and themselves. And so this functionality appears on every page. When I'm actually in desktop view, the text option goes away, because while you can technically text from a desktop, it creates kind of a weird user experience that is not the best. So we elected to just remove that option. So here we see understanding the basics. This is what we call a drawer. And this drawer is open because I said that I wanted legal information and a lawyer. If I had selected all three options, so the options are legal information, a lawyer, or forms, then everything shows up closed. And I'll show you in a minute how the order works as well. So understanding the basics, we try to give folks a really high-level overview of what they need to know. We try to keep these kind of brief overviews down to about 300 words. And we also try to make sure that any key information is either bolded or contained in a heading. We found, again, through observing our users, that many folks don't always take the time to read every word on a page, and people are much more likely to read headings or bolded text than anything else. We also link off to additional longer articles. So if someone isn't sure that what their issue is something that their landlord is required to fix, we want to give them that information. And then here, I'll navigate here. So we see here examples of repairs that landlords should make. And then down at the bottom, easy to navigate back to the page that I came from. So that's understanding the basics. Next we have legal help and lawyers. Because I said that I lived in Columbus and have a low income, I get the Legal Aid Society of Columbus first. I also said that I was a senior, so Pro Seniors is a statewide nonprofit that has a legal hotline. So any resident age 60 or older can call Pro Seniors and get some brief advice over the phone. I also have the Columbus Bar Association and the Ohio State Bar Association. Everyone gets their local bar association and the Ohio State Bar Association. So if I didn't enter any information at all, those two things would still come up. Here we repeat back to folks what they said when they answered the questions, and they can easily go back and change their answers. This especially can be helpful, let's say if you're looking up information for someone else and you realize that something was inaccurate, or if you're a service provider and you're looking up information for multiple people, in one session, it's easy to go back and reset this information to resolve the issue that you're trying to address. Right. Next, we have forms and letters, which I will talk about more in a moment. And then at the bottom here, we have local government and community resources. This is where the courts and the law libraries reside, as well as self-help centers. If your jurisdiction has a self-help center, that will appear first. We also put some social services in local government community resources. So the Community Action Agency appears based on my income. And then the Area Agency on Aging, because I'm a senior. And then we have the public libraries. So the public librarians have been very gracious and excited about this project. Many of them have agreed to serve as navigators for the website, so teaching patrons who might be doing some legal research how to navigate. This is really important, especially in some more rural settings, places where folks don't necessarily have a self-help center or public printers available at the courthouse, or maybe don't have access to a law library or a public-facing law library. And it's actually interesting. So part of our initial research was that we mapped about 4,000 resources geographically using ArcGIS, and we saw where everything was, and the public libraries were actually the most consistently available offices and services looking at the geography. So again, this is very important for our more rural residents. So here we have forms and letters. Forms and letters is coming after understanding the basics and legal help and lawyers. That's because I didn't say that I wanted forms in my initial interview. If I said I only wanted forms, this would have come up first and it would have been open. So again, we want to give folks, we truly try to strike the balance between giving folks what they ask for and also not, keeping information from them. We always want to make it clear that there is other information available, even if we don't want to overwhelm them with that information initially if they didn't ask for it. Right. So let's say that I read legal help or understanding the basics, and it explains to me that if I've already told my landlord, I can write him a letter asking that he, make the required repairs. So go down to forms and letters and hit landlord letter. First, again, we kind of repeat the context of this. Again, we understand that folks could be Googling in and not have gone through this lovely kind of user flow that we're going through right now. So we always want to put context on every page about what this particular item is trying to resolve. We give folks some information about what to do with the form once it's completed. We want to make sure people understand that the form isn't going to be automatically, submitted to a court or sent to the other party, that they actually need to print it out and mail it. And you will see this repeated several times throughout. We really focus on redundancy, again, because we know that oftentimes people aren't that interested in reading the information until it's the moment that they need it. So we repeat, these important details as often as we can. I can also preview the form to see what exactly it is I'm putting together. If I look at this and I say, oh, no, this isn't actually what I need, I can go back and search and try to figure out, my next step. So I'm going to say I want to fill it out online. Hold on 1 second. You all. Look at this. Oh, I'm sorry, guys. This was a cookie issue. I'm gonna quickly. Thank you for bearing with me. All right. So this is what it looks like when you start the form assistant itself. You start out with a list of kind of verification questions to make sure that this is actually the form or letter that's going to help that person. We don't want, folks to be sending off threatening letters to their landlords if they haven't even told the landlord that it's a problem, things like that. We also have the ability to add this help text here. So you see we have the link here. So we have the ability to link out to other article pages to give people that same context that we could give them from the main hub, as well as non-linked text, but also text that is more interactive. So, for example, on our divorce forms right now, we have divorce without children on the document assembly tool. And if someone checks that they have children on the "Is this right for you" page, the help text will pop up and say, I'm not sure that this is right for you. If you do have kids, you'll need to fill out the divorce with children forms. Again, here, I'm going to quickly reset the view on this. I want to show you all that this is also built to be mobile first. So again, everything centers down the center. We make sure that the buttons are big and clickable, finger-friendly. All right, so now we get to just the general, you know, putting in information to fill out a form. We did some user testing recently, actually, at the Franklin County Municipal Court Self-Help Resource Center, and folks were pretty comfortable with this interface. We didn't have too many issues in terms of the actual mechanics of filling out any of these forms, which is great. And again, for this form, it's pretty quick. So we didn't have a recommendation for folks as to whether they fill it out on a phone or a computer. For some of our longer forms, especially for our divorce forms, we have a few different points where we recommend that folks fill out this form using a desktop computer. It's really, it's not that it won't work, it's just that we expect it to be a bit more of a comfortable experience. We also want to make sure that folks have consistent access to the internet. You know, heaven forbid that their browser crashes and they've been working on a form for 30 minutes and, you know, because their cell phone signal gets weak, you know, they lose their session. We don't want that to happen. So after I'm finished filling out my forms, I kind of get this summary page. So again, emphasizing that the user needs to print the letter, save a copy, and physically mail or deliver the physical letter. Great, I'm going to hit submit. Great, and now I get asked how I want to save my document. So we have two options for folks. We have the option to download the completed form or email the completed form. If you're on a phone, we recommend that folks email it to themselves. You can save a PDF on your phone. However, at least in my experience, I've found that it can be kind of hard to locate within your phone once it's saved. And we didn't want, we want people to be aware that that might be kind of difficult if they weren't, you know, a master of the way that their phone stores files that way. So we suggest that they email it to themselves. It's also great to have a backup, you know, obviously saved in your email. It's like having something saved to the cloud. And then you can also download the document to your device. Again, we emphasize that it might be easier if you mail it to yourself until you can get to a computer. But for this demonstration, I'm going to download the form so you can see. Right, so here I'm going to get out of the developer view. So here's the form. Each form that's assembled will have this cover sheet that goes through the next step for the specific issue. We have the ability to actually customize these cover letters based on the jurisdiction of the user. So it's not necessarily relevant for something like a letter to a landlord, but let's say for a divorce. If the user is in a jurisdiction with a domestic relations help center, we can, you know, put the address of the help center on this page and say, hey, there's a help center available. You can take these forms by the help center before you file to kind of go through everything and make sure they're complete. For this example, we tell folks to send a letter, fill out. You'll see at the bottom we have folks indicate if they did deliver it by hand to have a date. Just, you know, for their records, we want to make sure that they have all the information they need. Should they have to potentially file for rent escrow later down the line, and then that they need to deliver it or send it by certified mail. So here's the fully assembled document. Again, we give space for folks to sign. for the actual court forms themselves that require notarized signatures, we make sure in that instruction sheet and throughout the form assembly interview to really emphasize that folks should not sign it right away, and they should not electronically sign it. They need to wait and physically sign it in front of a notary. So that's the form. We were really excited to be able to put that experience together. There are a lot of different document assembly tools out there, but there wasn't anything that we found to be particularly mobile friendly that was integrated with the user's experience, so it's not like the user gets directed off to a third-party site where they have to create an account and kind of go through a separate process. We wanted to keep everything very contained within our site, and it's also we found to be a little bit easier to maintain. We don't have to necessarily have coding knowledge to administer these forms, so that's been a real exciting development for us. So going back to the site itself, I'm going to spend some time talking about our next steps, kind of for the website and as an organization. Does anyone have any questions about the functionality or the content that we just went through? All right, well, seeing none, just to give you guys kind of a sense of where we're headed. So right now we are live. If you go to www.ohiolegalhelp.org, you will be able to access everything I just showed you and much more. If you Google it, it comes up, which is very exciting. And you can feel free to refer patrons to the site. Everything that's up there has been tested and double tested and to the best of our ability has been verified. If you see anything that, especially if you're looking at resources and organizations and the information looks like it might need to be updated, please let me know. Please feel free to email me. We have if you go to our contact us page, we have the Ohio Legal Help email here. I'm at the other end of that, so that's just essentially my email. So feel free to reach out directly that way. We will be working on more content over the summer. So our next focus areas are on content specifically around issues that affect seniors. So that's going to be especially kinship care and some probate, wills, advance directives, that sort of thing. And then our close conjunction following that, we're going to be building out some more information on veterans benefits. We don't have that information right now under our health and public benefits. And then, looking forward to, beyond the summer, kind of over the next year, we will be building out some more information on education, immigration, potentially some barriers to employment. There's a lot of really great work being done around driver's license reinstatement and CQEs, especially in our legal aids in courts around the state. And so we are keenly aware that that's another high need area that a lot of folks end up having to tackle on their own. But that's definitely on our list as well. Going forward this summer, so we very quietly launched the site last week. And we are actually on the verge of sending out kind of the announcement to our stakeholders and partners, the folks who've been engaged with us kind of throughout this process, to let them know that the site is live. And you all will be included on that email. I have your email addresses now as a result of this webinar. And in that email, we will include a link to sign up to receive collateral. We'll have a series of different options that you can, opt into or out of based on your needs. We talk to a lot of kind of different types of stakeholders, so folks who work in social services, folks who work in courts, and kind of thinking through what would be the most helpful thing. And we kind of found that there are some organizations that really focus more on physical collateral. So we will actually have printed business cards that you can put out, in your, pamphlet sections, in waiting areas, things like that, as well as physical posters that we will send you. And then we also have digital collateral. So that will include like sample social media posts, a embedded logo that you can put on your website with the link, and just a few other little kind of odds and ends, as well as some items that can be, printed, like a quick start guide if you have a patron that needs a little bit of extra help getting started. So please be on the lookout for that. We really want to be able to support you all, and if you have any feedback, I really welcome it. I know that you really are on the front lines in terms of helping folks find this information. So if you think of anything that would be helpful to you, I would be happy to talk to our communications person and see if we might be able to figure it out. Do I have any additional questions before we wrap up? I think I'm going to give you all about 19 minutes back to your day. All right, I have no questions. Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. I really, again, welcome your feedback. Please feel free to email me at any time, and I will distribute the link to this recording once the session's over. Thanks so much.